while back I did my top 10 worst superhero film and TV ideas of all time. Between that and the Spider-Man Obama team-up comic, I figured it was time for me to talk about something that I actually enjoy. And what better way to do that than give you my top 10 personal favorite superhero movies of all time. Number 10, Sin City. Now this is not a typical superhero movie by any stretch of the imagination. It has incredibly stylized visuals, very gritty action, and a very atypical method of telling a story. I won't spoil anything for you, but I will say that this movie is definitely more interested in anti-heroes than it is actual superheroes. One of the things that really makes this movie stand out is that it is probably the most faithful adaptation I have ever seen of a comic book. It stays almost completely faithful to its source material. Anyone who's read the books and enjoyed them will not be disappointed by this movie. I mean, I certainly wasn't, and that is why Sin City earns itself a place on my top 10 list. Number 9, Hellboy II, The Golden Army. I really loved the Hellboy movies. I really enjoy movies that examine the question of what would you do if you had a job that was simultaneously one of the hardest and most thankless jobs in the world. Such is the case with Hellboy. I mean, he has to save the world from Armageddon like every couple of weeks, and he never gets any credit for it. Both of the Hellboy movies examine that really well, but I think the second one does the better of the two. Plus, both movies have a wonderful sense of artistic direction and a great sense of humor. Now, if you want to watch Hellboy 2, you definitely do have to see the first Hellboy prior, or you're gonna be totally lost. But trust me when I say that the Hellboy movies are well worth your time. Number 8. Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. One of the best, if not the best, comic book TV series of all time was Batman the Animated Series, so it is no surprise that a movie based on that series would make it onto my list. Much like the series it came from, Batman Mask of the Phantasm pushed the limit of what it meant to tell a superhero story. The thing I really admire about this movie is that it manages to balance a lot of different plot elements without getting confusing or tedious. The animation is top-notch as always, and every single voice actor gives a stellar performance. It has a lot of classic mystery elements to it that I think a lot of people appreciate. Plus a great story, fantastic action, and of course, Mark Hamill's Joker. How could you ask for more? Number 7, Batman, the original one. I really feel that this movie hasn't been getting its due credit ever since the release of The Dark Knight. Which is a real shame because this movie really did revolutionize the superhero genre. It was aimed more at adults than it was at kids, and it brought a certain darkness and respect to itself. It took its audience incredibly seriously, and had great action, dynamic visuals, an outstanding story, and amazing acting. But would you expect any less from director Tim Burton? Number 6, Iron Man. This is a movie that has a great blend of action and humor. The CGI and special effects are some of the best that I've ever seen. And the journey of Tony Stark from irresponsible, genius rich boy to superhero fighting for justice is awesome. What I like about this movie is that Tony Stark doesn't actually start out as a likable character. He actually starts off as an aloof jerk, getting away with whatever he wants to because of his money. It's only when he sees all the evil that has been brought to the world at his hands that he decides to give up doing all that and take up the role of Iron Man. I think a lot of us can relate to a character who realizes that he's been doing something horrible and feels really guilty for it. And that's why we ultimately warm up to Tony Stark. For all these reasons and more, Iron Man ranks number 6 on my top 10 list. Number 5, The Incredible Hulk. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, the Hulk is hard to get right. He's been involved in some really good stuff, but a lot of really stupid stuff as well. Thankfully, this reboot, released in June 2008, is definitely in the former category. Unlike the 2003 release, all the actors in this movie seem to fit into their roles very well, especially Edward Norton. It's got a fantastic balance of story and action. But what I think is the most important aspect of this movie is that it doesn't just examine Bruce Banner as a character, it also examines the Hulk as a character. It shows us that the Hulk isn't really a bloodthirsty monster. He's just a huge beast with the mind of a scared little child. There's a really powerful scene in which he gets scared of a lightning storm and he starts roaring at the sky. At which point Liv Tyler's character has to calm him down and explain to him that it's nothing trying to hurt him. And really, that's the only reason that the Hulk is so violent. He doesn't really understand how the world around him works, and a lot of the people he meets are trying to hurt him. He doesn't lash out because he's evil, he lashes out because he's frightened, and I think that's something a lot of us can relate to on one level or another. Definitely the best thing I've ever seen from the Hulk franchise, the Incredible Hulk definitely deserves the slot on my list. Number 4, Spider-Man II. Now, I already discussed the Spider-Man movies in pretty lengthy detail in another set of videos, so I'm not going to dwell on this for very long. But as you all know by now, I really love it. And a lot of you may be wondering just how the hell I could put this movie above such masterpieces as Iron Man and the original Batman movie. Well, it's pretty simple. I'm judgmentally biased. I friggin' love Spider-Man. He's my favorite superhero of all time, and remember, this isn't just a list of movies that I think are objectively the best of all time, these are just my personal favorites. And that's why Spider-Man 2 is so high on my list. Number 3, The Incredibles. Of all the superhero movies on this list, this is the only one to not be based on either a comic book or a graphic novel. It was just a totally original idea. It takes the pressure of having superpowers and gives it to us from 4 different perspectives. A hyperactive little kid, an awkward teenager, an overworked housewife, and a frustrated middle-aged husband. The characters in this movie really do seem like real people, and that's what makes it so effective. The director wanted to create a movie that juxtaposes the ideas of the mundane and the fantastic. And this movie does that really, really well. From the downfall of superheroes caused by lawsuits, to the end battle, which is literally a fight over the remote control. It makes the point that life is not always going to be amazing. And when it is amazing, it's often dangerous and scary. So you need to learn to appreciate the normal stuff that happens to you because normalcy is often a blessing. Showing us that it's nice to appreciate the small things in our superpowered lives, The Incredibles is a perfect choice for the number 3 spot. Number 2, The Dark Knight. Do I even need to explain myself with this one? I mean, this movie is just brilliant. The sounds, the action, the visuals, the acting, the story, it's all just fantastic. Batman Begins was an amazing movie, so this sequel had a lot riding on it. Every single aspect of this movie was under intense scrutiny. But if there was one thing in this movie that nobody could complain about, it was Heath Ledger's Joker. When this movie finally came out, Ledger was given his due praise for one of the most amazingly portrayed roles in all of movie history. And besides Ledger, we were treated to a whole slew of really, really brilliantly acted roles. A work of total brilliance, The Dark Knight is a perfect choice for my number 2 spot. And my number 1 favorite comic book movie of all time is Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. This movie is a masterpiece. Great action, superb voice acting, and a perfect story. The basic plot of the movie is that someone who appears to be the original Joker has resurfaced in Gotham. I'm not going to say anything more because I don't want to spoil this movie for any of you, and if any of you are watching this and haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a truly chilling, action-packed, and sometimes even funny movie. And for all its mastery, I give it the honor of being my favorite superhero movie of all time. So those are my top 10 superhero movies. But wait a minute. I've done all the videos I had planned for this month already, and now I have nothing to send you guys off with at the end of the month. What am I gonna do now? I mean, this is... I have no idea what's gonna happen. You know, I need to figure out something. Something to send this month off with a bang. But what could be worthy of such a task? What was that? What the? No. That's not true. That's impossible! Search your feelings. You know it to be true. No!